Hello, I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Mental health courts have been in operation in Montgomery County now for several months, and the results can already be seen in the people who are obtaining services and the fact that the courts are operating. Phil Andrews from the state's attorney's office is here to bring us up to date. Montgomery's Kids is an organization that's been in operation for 2 years as services for children in our community who unfortunately have been the victims of abuse. Agnes Leshner is on the board of directors. She's here to give us details about Montgomery's Kids as they try to achieve what government cannot do. Fulbright scholarships and Fulbright Scholars have been working around the world, providing an opportunity for young and old to work with people from around the world and then bring it back here. Bruce Fowler, who comments for this program on a regular basis, is going to talk about the strength and importance of Fulbright and why we should care here in Montgomery County. Community Support Services has provided persons with autism the opportunity to participate throughout the lifeblood of Montgomery County, the best of each of their abilities. Susan Ingram, the founder and executive director of this program that spans the full autism spectrum and also from young to old, is going to tell us all about this program. Phil Andrews, welcome.
Good to see you, Don.
You get younger and younger all the time, Phil Andrews.
Saying that.
When are you going back to the county council, Phil?
I'm enjoying what I'm doing, Don.
Mental health courts. We've talked about them before. We were looking at them as you're about ready to launch them.
Right.
They're launched.
Then they're
Time for a
been
report.
underway for a few months. So
Yes.
there was a huge latent need for mental health court because we already have 50 people in our mental health courts in the district and circuit court, and jails are not the place to treat mentally ill people.
So tell us,
So-
how do they work?
What they work is that people are referred to the court by various parts of the criminal justice system, by police officers, by attorneys, by family members, by judges, and they're screened to see if they're an appropriate candidate for mental health court. So what we do is we accept people who have committed minor crimes because of their mental illness and who would be safe in the community if supervised closely. So we have about 50 people now in the 2 courts. Our first participant was a 69-year-old gentleman who had never gotten in trouble with the law before, but he went off his medications for a short while and committed a minor crime. He's sort of the perfect candidate for mental health court because this way he avoids a criminal record
Right.
if he graduates, and it's clear he committed the crime and it wasn't a major crime because of his mental illness.
Sitting in a jail cell doesn't solve mental illness, does it?
No, it doesn't. And while there aren't enough beds for those who need hospital beds, many people with mental illness can live in the community, can become independent, can be contributing members, but they need that second chance and they need some supervision in this kind of case.
And can they get mental health treatment in the community? Is there adequate treatment?
Well, yes, there is. Montgomery County does have a good number of resources, and we work with providers like Cornerstone, for example, and the therapists that are working with the program from Health and Human Services do a great job in matching up the participants with services in the community. Housing is often the most difficult issue.
Right.
There's often some waiting period, but with judicial intervention, sometimes it's helpful in order to make sure that happens sooner than later.
Have you had any pushback by victims of
No.
these individuals?
No, there really hasn't been. There was really good support, broad support for this because the problem is so clear. We had over 2,000 people every year as of FY15 being booked into the jail who needed immediate mental health care. That number had gone up 100% in just 4 years. So there's at the same time,
Right.
the population of the jail was declining by 30%. So we've seen this around the country, and we're the 4th jurisdiction in Maryland now to have a mental health court. So we could learn from the others too.
And do the judges check on the mental health?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a session this afternoon in district court where the judge will meet each week with most of the participants. Participants come each week for the first few weeks, and then every 2 weeks if they're doing well for a while after that. Sometimes it can go down to every 3 weeks depending on how it's going, but there's a lot of contact. And the relationship between the judge and the participant is crucial in all of these problem-solving courts like mental health court or drug court. And that's what you see. These judges have conversations with the participants. The participants want to succeed. And while there can be setbacks, which is not unusual, the program seems to work really well.
In looking at this, let's say a misdemeanor that carries maybe a maximum sentence of 30 days or a fine or something like that. What's the end? I mean, how does somebody graduate from the program?
So it's a 12 to 18 month program. So one of the challenges is there may be cases where someone has a sentence if they're convicted of just 30 days, and
Right.
you might have to persuade them, well, yes, you're going to be in the program longer than that, but the odds are you've been back here 6 times in the last 2 years, and we really want to address this so that you're successful. We don't
Because we're
want
looking at
you-
the mental health. We're not looking at the punishment.
That's
We're
right.
looking at how can you get through this so that
We
we
want to
never
get you
see
through
you again.
this.
Right.
We want to help you avoid jail. We want to help you reduce the charges or get the charge null prost so
Right.
that it doesn't go forward. And that's possible if they are participating and they're graduating over a year or so. So there's regular review with the judge. The participant meets with the caseworkers regularly for the courts. They meet with the therapists from HHS. And the recidivism rate for all these programs around the country that have had mental health courts usually goes down about 25 to 30% for participants after they're out. And the studies show that when there is a violation, it's normally like a technical violation.
And are there certain judges who are trained in
Yes.
dealing with
Okay, just a little bit over
this?
30
so there's
seconds
a
left on this.
dedicated judge. So Judge Mitchell in the district court has taken this on, and she is the regular judge for this. Judge Wolf substitutes when she's not available, but it's a specified docket.
what I wondered
And in
about.
the circuit court, it's Judge Baer. So they've gotten extra training in this, and they are extremely committed to the courts.
You're feeling confident. I mean, you sound very upbeat about all of this.
I am. There was such a need for this, and it's great to see it underway. And clearly, there's a good team of people working on this, and the participants are carefully screened. So all the best practices that we found in other places have been applied here.
That's great. Well, I hope you'll come back as it goes from 50 to the 1,000 or whatever the folks that need and
Look
tell
forward
us
to
more
it.
about it. Thanks, Phil. Well, we're turning from a successful program coming up to a program we still don't have, a problem that we still don't have a fix on. I mean, it's horrible, Agnes, when we see about more abuse by those in authority, of teachers, of relatives, of bosses, and whatever. And you're here to tell us about a program that's about 2 years old, I think, right?
So Montgomery's Kids hopes to and tries to enrich the lives of the children. And most of the children and youth who have been physically and sexually abused and neglected really are victims of their parents or their relatives. What we try to do is ask the social workers, ask us for things that will make the children's lives a little more like their friends, like their classmates. They have, children who have been abused and neglected have a whole host of problems,
Sure.
mental health being a major one, academic problems, housing, where are they going to...
where are they going to go? If they
When
got to
they-
get out of the abuser's house.
Right. Well, we do have. There are over 200 foster parents who have
Right.
stepped forward. But when they're at age 21, the child welfare system has to discharge them, and many of them do have a housing issue, similar to what Phil was talking about.
Yeah, we'll talk about 21. And 21 autism too is a magic.
Right.
That 21 year is a tough thing.
So what we try to do is fill in those gaps. The government provides all the basic necessities of food, shelter,
Right.
clothing initially. But things like summer camp or a soccer uniform
Okay.
or things like that. So yesterday we got a call from a young woman who is aging out of the foster care system. She's working at 2 jobs. She's taking classes at Towson. She just finished a semester. She's taking a summer course working at 2 jobs. She has a car that she paid for,
Right.
and the air conditioning broke. And she couldn't afford to pay her rent and the statistics course she's taking. And so her social worker said, would Montgomery's Kids pay to have of course we would pay. We recently paid for a young woman totally abandoned by her family. We paid the first month rent so that she could move into an apartment.
Wow. Well, I know there'll be a lot of questions about this. Tell us a typical child's story who you're helping.
Okay, so there's a young woman who was adopted, and then her adoptive mother 2 years later gave her back to the child welfare system. She has grown up, has done very well. She's gone to Montgomery College, and her social worker, she's working, she's going to school and doing very well. And her social worker said, would we give her a gift card to buy some new clothes to sort of recognize that she's done really well at Montgomery College this year. And so we're giving her a gift card so she can go out and buy clothes like many of her friends have.
So,
Agnes, what's the biggest challenge that the organization faces?
Money. I mean, raising money. We're a new nonprofit, and so we usually have house parties where we bring some older youth who tell their stories, and usually people write us a check right there. We recently were fortunate to get a small grant from the Bethesda Chevy Chase Rotary Foundation. So.
Do you also see overlap into the disability community where perhaps sometimes the needs of the individual are so great that the family can't meet them and therefore charges of neglect or abuse occur?
You know, because Montgomery's Kids is only looking at what the request from the social worker is to enrich the life of the child, we really don't know the history. Sometimes the social worker will give us a little bit of history, but we wouldn't know that. And so I really don't know.
Are you concerned at all about the proposed changes in Medicaid in terms of the basic services that are already covered by government and that putting more pressure on the nonprofit to come up with even more things?
So not in my role as Montgomery's Kids, but in general, yes, I am worried about it because, you know, as I've said, mental health and substance abuse is a major problem for kids who have been traumatized by abuse and neglect, and there's national data on that.
Right.
So
Medicaid's a major funding source for their therapy and for their other services.
yeah, so I mean, I hear a little bit of what Phil was talking about in terms of the whole person. We're looking to see how can this individual, and in this case, victims of abuse, be able to then get out, live full lives, and so you're providing some of those things that are going to help them do that. We've got about 45 seconds left, unfortunately.
Well, we have the thing that we are most focused on right now is summer camp. So we have paid for about 12 or 14 kids to go to summer camp so that they can be just like their other friends who are going off, and that's not always paid for by foster parents or relatives or the government. So we're very happy to send kids to summer camp.
Just a short, like 10 seconds left. Are you feeling confident that we're making progress here?
We are making progress in the small number of children that we're able to serve. We would love to serve more, and definitely around the issue of housing. We would love to be able to support more youth who are aging out of foster care in housing.
All right, thanks, Agnes. We'll be right back after this message. And we're back. Bruce Fowler, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
Dr. Fowler, great scientist as you are, yes. But we're talking about a subject that's near and dear to both of us.
Yes.
As I was a Fulbright Scholar in Mauritius, you're a Fulbright Scholar
In Stockholm.
Sweden. Two magnificent countries, Sweden and Mauritius. People seem to know more about Sweden than they do about Mauritius. But if this is a program that a lot of people have heard about, but don't understand why we should care and fight for it, especially as it's under attack, as I understand it is, Bruce.
That is correct. Fulbright program right now in the president's budget is looking at a 47% cut in its funding, which is, the last time was about $325 million. Now, $325 million in overall terms of the U.S. government budget is what is referred to as budget dust by the U.S. Congress. This is a very small amount of money overall. But the program is the most highly leveraged program in the U.S. government portfolio.
Tell us about what do you mean by highly leveraged?
It means that if a Fulbrighter makes it through the selection process and is sent to a foreign country and they're willing to take him on, they share the cost, they share the burden of the expenses involved. And these Fulbrighters are so highly prized by other countries that the differential between how much the U.S. government puts into it and how much another country puts into it is amazing. In my case, in Sweden, it was 3/4 of it was paid for by the Swedish government sources. Other countries, as I understand, Spain is one of them, it's like 8-1.
So the leverage going out, but what Fulbright program, when Fulbrighters come back to the United States or are working, continue to work overseas, what are they doing?
They go into all walks of endeavor. Okay, they're virtually any profession or occupation you can think of has Fulbrighters in it. So they're teachers, for example. Let's use those as a good example. It's very important as our society becomes more diverse for teachers to be able to relate to students coming from other countries. And a Fulbrighter who's been, let's say, in a Spanish-speaking country and understands the language and can relate to the students that he or she is teaching is more effective as such, and there's great value for the money.
And I imagine that teacher's also sharing it with other teachers
Yes.
around in the school and elsewhere. Phil?
Bruce, how did your Fulbright experience change your life?
Well, in my case, I have had friends in Sweden for a number of years, but we were engaged in doing scientific research, but also writing papers and books. So I've continued that collaboration. That's the other thing I should mention. We establish working relationships with people in those countries that go on for years, and I'm publishing books right now with some colleagues in Sweden as part of that experience. So it becomes, those kinds of international activities become much easier if you can relate to the person directly. I think I would like to say something also about soft diplomacy.
Good. We got about a minute and a half left.
Okay. The Fulbright program operates on something called soft diplomacy, which is basically informal relationships among Fulbrighters that you just sit down and talk with them. Okay, this isn't a table with a line down the middle. You can go and have coffee with them or whatever, and you work out problems that may arise. So this is a much smoother and less costly way of getting business done.
Well, it's also, I think, in the soft diplomacy, just to jump in, it's Fulbrighters coming here,
Yep.
it's Americans going out. So it's not just Fulbright to Fulbrighters, but it's America and relationships around the world. And it seems to me, and get me if I'm wrong, is the tendency that we've seen over the last several months is building walls, is separating us.
Yes.
And the Fulbright program is one of those
It goes the other way.
that goes the other way. And gosh, if we don't have this balance, what happens to us?
Nothing good.
And what a great term, soft diplomacy. We
Yeah.
need that in this world right now.
Well, we do, and just to carry it a little further, there are about 185 or so countries in the world. About 60 of them are headed by former Fulbrighters.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have friends in faraway places.
And do countries invite Fulbright to send 10 Fulbrights to that particular
They'll
country?
take everyone they can get, usually.
About 15 seconds.
Okay, it comes down to people having an interest in going to that particular country and having a host in that country who says, I'll take them and I'm glad to have them.
Right. Bruce, we've talked forever, and I look forward to following up and talk more about our Fulbright experiences.
Sure.
It certainly changed my life
Yeah.
for the positive, and I've taken those lessons from my Fulbright every day, and I think I've helped make Montgomery County a stronger place because of my Fulbright, as you have
Yeah.
as well. So thank you
Sure.
for your service. Susan, welcome.
Thank you.
It is great to have you.
It's great to be here.
So autism is your life, is your mission in the organization that you created over 20 years ago.
That's right. And it has, as everyone's seen on the news, become an increasingly known diagnosis and disability. When I started in the field, we had to spell it because people thought we were saying artistic. And now most people know the term. They understand what it means to have autism. They understand that that individual has communication and social behavioral challenges that need support. And we've tried to create, in this county, alternatives to institutionalization.
Well, tell us a little bit. You hear the term the autism spectrum a lot, and so when you're talking about the services in the county, you're talking about this. What is the autism spectrum, and where are you? Your work. Where's your work along the spectrum?
Okay. Well, usually people are referring to the autism spectrum, they're talking about the individual and how significantly impaired or what areas of need that particular person has, whether it's milder, whether they have intense communication needs, for example, cannot speak at all verbally, or someone that might have just some odd interests or strong interests that make it difficult for them to cope with social rules. So there's a big spectrum, just as there is if you have a hearing impairment, you might have a mild one or a more severe one.
Sure.
For people that we are trying to develop services for, we're looking at people that previously had been placed in institutional settings,
Okay.
and that was the state's mechanism for providing supports, and people didn't want that. People and their families ask to be in the community. They want to live in regular neighborhoods with support. They might need someone for supervision and instruction, but they want to live right next door to you, and they want to work in your business or where you do business. They want to contribute to their society, and they want to go to school here. They want to learn and continue to build their own skills. And so we provide different aspects of all of those services to people throughout the age range. That it's a lifelong disability, so people need supports from children to adults.
Okay.
And where do most of your referrals come from?
Our referrals come from Montgomery County Public Schools, they come from Child Welfare, they come from the Developmental Disabilities Administration, and they come directly from parents and families. Increasingly, people advocate for the services that they need and speak up and ask for things. We recently started a new venture in employment because it has been very difficult to find meaningful employment for people, and that is very important to each person. And we opened a deli called That's a Wrap. It's right across from Quince Orchard High School.
It's really good. I've had a chance to eat there. It's close to
Excellent.
where I
Oh,
live.
that's such good news. That's great to hear. They employed 20 people part-time who have learning issues, and they work with them to develop their skills. And the progress that people have made, they're now doing food prep, they're serving people up front, in addition to eating healthy food.
How'd you get the idea for That's a Wrap?
Well, we had a very strong cooking program, and people were really progressing in their interests. They were able to eat more foods. One of the characteristics of some people is that they eat very limited food choices. And by cooking it themselves, they were more open to trying that carrot or trying a salad or trying a fruit. So we saw such success with that we thought, let's be in a regular shopping center in a regular neighborhood instead of being off to the side. And so we also could provide food to the rest of the community.
What are the hours that it's open?
It's open right now from 9 to 4, and starting next week, I'm so glad you asked, it's going to be open to 7. So
good.
9 to 7, Monday through
right.
Saturday.
And
Get
is
dinner
there-
there too then.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
you can get dinner there too.
And is there somebody who helps them get a job after their internship?
So this is considered ongoing employment. We are not time limiting their time there, but certainly if they wish to go and become employed elsewhere, one person that works there also works at Burger King. And he has 2 part-time jobs. Another individual also does volunteer work at various nonprofits around the county. We are open to anyone who has employment ideas or opportunities. If you run a nonprofit or work for one, we're happy to get volunteer experience there too.
45 seconds left. Are we making progress in the autism world?
We are making progress. There are a lot of services in Montgomery County in particular. The county council has been very supportive. Phil, when he was on the council, helped to put through a supplement for individuals who receive Developmental Disabilities Administration funding. We have a great school system in this county, and they help to prepare children for adulthood, this 21-year-old age, as you said, where they then go out into the world and need adult services. And they prepare them for employment. We are an employment first state, and our goal is to help people be productive as adults.
What are the rates?
So we're done,
We're done.
unfortunately. I wish we could go through. Let's
Okay.
have this. Let's continue this discussion when we're done. So thank you
Sure.
for being here, and thank all of you for joining me today. And those of you in the viewing audience, we thank you too, and hope you'll be back next week at this very same time. I'm Don Moores, saying so long from Montgomery Week in Review.